There are three of us gathered here, senior members of the Great Western Mining team. Myself, non-executive director, the executive chairman, Brian Hall, and the chief geologist, James Blight. So we're here to talk about copper in particular. Great Western Mining has got tremendous potential in its copper exploration portfolio. But first of all, let's go to Brian. What's new with Great Western Mining and copper?
Well, we've been pretty busy over the last 12 months, as you'd be aware, Alistair. This time last year, we were able to announce that we'd identified a copper porphyry on our West Huntoon project, which was very exciting news for us. And we've been working on that ever since and made a lot of progress. But in the meantime, we think we've also established another potential copper porphyry on our Eastside Mine claims, which we haven't done a lot of work on for 2 or 3 years now. And so we're now looking at a tale of two porphyries, which is quite interesting and sets the picture for a larger general copper play in the area, which is something we are pursuing very strongly.
So porphyry, the key word there. Perhaps we should learn a bit more about what a porphyry really is. James, what's a porphyry?
Yeah, so as Brian sort of alluded to there, most of the world's largest copper deposits are porphyries. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about how they form and what other deposits are found nearby them in the crust. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so we have a fairly detailed diagram here showing the porphyry system and the setting and other deposits that form in relation to it. And I'm going to simplify this for you. Just to focus in on the deposits that we are going to address today. So the porphyry system typically forms at the upper parts of a large magma chamber in the crust that solidify to form granites. So porphyries typically form in relation to large granite bodies. They form, as I say, in the upper parts of those bodies and in the surrounding host rocks, creating these very large deposits. But alongside the specific porphyry deposits, you can also have other deposits that form in relation to them. So these systems are much larger than individual deposits. When you have these big intrusions, they drive mineralization over a long time period and in a large volume of the crust. And you can get more than one deposit adjacent and more than one type of deposit adjacent to each other. So the other deposit types that we're interested in here are skarns, which is when an intrusion meets a limestone and there's a chemical buffering effect and you form a deposit. And then the epithermal environment, which is typically higher up in the crust than the porphyry, sitting above. And this is where you get the sort of high-grade precious metal veins, like gold and silver veins, sitting up there high in the system. So those are the three deposit types I'd really like to focus on today, and we'll mention more about how those form, where those are located on our claims later. But there's also breccia pipes, mineralized breccia pipes, that can be in the core of the porphyry system, and that's more of an indicator of the right kind of setting. We've got a bit of that as well. So those are the deposit types, and I'll hand back to you there.
So porphyries and additional exploration deposits as well to look at. Are there established porphyries in the area in which we operate, James?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a very significant porphyry district at Yerington, which is pretty close to us. It's about 100 kilometers away, and there's Yerington itself is a huge hole in the ground. It's been mined out. It's a mile long, half a mile wide, 800 feet deep. There are other porphyries in that district which are in the process of being assessed or have not yet been mined. There's also Pumpkin Hollow, which is a skarn deposit. And there are epithermal indicators further to the west. So again, you have this collage of different deposits within the district. And the fact that they're all there together is showing you that there's this big system that's fed all of these different deposits.
It sounds like we're in the right part of the world then. Let's move to our own projects. Brian, just remind us a bit about the Huntoon Copper Project.
Okay. Now, the Huntoon Valley is a big, flat sedimentary valley with hills on each side of it. And actually, it would help me, James, if I could have one. Here we go, one of your useful slides. This is it. And you may need to move the mouse for me. Now, if you look at this, you look at the scale at the bottom, it shows 5 kilometers, so that gives an idea of the size. Right in the center, or rather on the right-hand side of that circle, is our M2 resource, which we drilled up several years ago now. And this is an established resource. which we've done about 5,000 feet of drilling. We could have drilled much more if we'd had the money, because it's so open at both ends, so to speak. We didn't drill it to its limits, and there's also potential for drilling in the middle of the area we drilled because we didn't have a permit to do so at the time. So this is an existing resource. It's not enormous. It's a skarn deposit, and it is our sole resource of copper, established resource of copper. Down to the south of that, James, you'd like to, there we are. That's the M4 prospect, which is also interesting, has porphyry possibilities. We've drilled 3 holes down there. It's on US Forest Service land. One of the holes was successful. And then across the flat valley, you come to the West Huntoon prospect. Now, we've had this for a while now, and we've done quite a lot of work on it. In an earlier time, that green area is private land owned by a company called Crown Point Resources. And we did a 3-year joint venture with them, or a cooperation agreement. And we drilled a successful well, 2 years to being the oil industry, a successful hole on that in about 2017. Then for other reasons, we were doing other things and the agreement lapsed, but we've restarted that agreement with Crown Point this year. And early this year, we announced that we now have a new agreement, which is called the Huntoon Mine Cooperation Agreement. And this is great because it gives us the benefit of being able to drill whenever we want without having to go through the long rigmarole of getting drill permits from the US Forest Service. So this is a major plus to be able to drill but it sits right in the middle of our concessions. So we have these 3 areas which all surround the valley, and it's rather like an auditorium. They all look as if they're related to each other. Whether they are directly related to each other and whether there's connectivity, we will not know without drilling, but the indications are pretty good. As we have established a porphyry setting at West Huntoon through finding a granite extrusion. Last year, we brought in an expert, Dr. Lawrence Carter, who confirmed this, and we've been working on the basis that we are sitting in a porphyry setting and that all the other things around it are interesting. If you actually go down to the bottom right-hand corner of this map, you'll see the Eastside Mine, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later, which is where we've done a deal this year. The Eastside Mine is separate from the Huntoon Copper Project, but it's not that separate. I mean, it's a long way away, but that's not that far away. But also, if you look elsewhere at Rock House, just a little bit between the two, we have copper indications from work we've done this year, and also over at the Ton Group on the left-hand side of the picture. So we're sitting in a copper area. We are at the heart of the copper area, which is really interesting.
So we'll get to the Eastside Mine in a minute, but James, could you just tell us a little bit more about the geology of the Huntoon Copper Project and also what you've been up to so far this year?
Sure, so I'll share my screen again. And okay, so here we have a zoomed in view of the northeast end of the Huntoon Valley. And I'm going to take you through the 3 major sub-projects within the Huntoon Copper Project, tell you how they're going at the moment, give you a up-to-date picture, and then we'll talk a bit more about the overall connectivity potential and what have you. So at West Huntoon, as Brian said, our focus has been at West Huntoon for the last 1.5 years plus in the field. And this really started with the discovery of the previously unmapped granite outcrop right here in the middle. So, before the start of 2023, we had a copper in soils anomaly. We knew there were abundant copper showings at surface, copper oxide showings at surface, malachite, that beautiful green color. We knew about all that. But we didn't really have a model for the mineralization. We had some ideas. We had a magnetic anomaly on the regional maps. But then at the start of last year, we identified this area of granite, and we saw that there was also copper in the granite. And then as we spent the field season walking over the ground, taking new grab samples, taking new soil samples, we found additional bosses of granite of a similar type. And the interesting thing about this granite is it doesn't seem to be the same, petrologically, it doesn't seem to be the same type as the abundant large areas of granite to the north. So this is an entirely different type of granite that hasn't been recognized in the area by the previous mappers, the USGS and other people. So towards the end of the year, we brought in the expertise of Dr. Carter, who has produced a lot of work on Yerington, on that district I mentioned. And Yerington is a world-class natural laboratory for understanding porphyry systems. It's, for various reasons, it's been tilted up on its side, and you can see the whole of the porphyry environment all sort of laid out there and mapped out. So someone who understands Yarrington, not only is their knowledge local to us because it's nearby, but also, you know, it's a great way of understanding these systems on the large scale. So he came in and looked at our granite, and he was very impressed, and he immediately started to find all of the textures that you expect to see in the types of granites that have released the fluids that mineralize porphyry systems. So those granites I mentioned to the north, they don't have those kind of textures, but our granite, the thing that's right in the middle of our copper area, our copper anomaly, has all of these interesting fluid release textures, which are, you know, in some cases, practically type examples. So that was a big positive for us. And one of Lawrence's recommendations was to carry out further work, take additional claims in this area, and to protect our claims, expand, and also to do some geophysics, so which is what we did early this year. So in early 2024, we went out there with an IP survey and produced from that work chargeability and resistivity anomalies. And those are the kind of anomalies, particularly the chargeability anomalies, that you expect to find relating to the disseminated mineralization in a porphyry system. So you can see all this mapped, and you can see this successive layers of geological clues overlapping each other, which is what we love to see as exploration geologists. We have the big soil anomaly, we have the granite in the middle, we have areas of copper showings, the block green here. We have chargeability anomalies written on in blue, and then overlapping with magnetic anomalies. I should say our magnetic survey does not cover this northeastern chargeability anomaly, so there might be an overlapping magnetic anomaly there as well. So there's a lot of evidence overlapping here, and things that are allowing us to build up a good set of drill targets. So West Huntoon is exciting. Work is ongoing. The field team has been there this summer, and there are further soil samples in the lab right now. We're hoping for an extension to the anomalous area to the northeast, but that is pending. So West Huntoon feels like it's been a great part of our story for the best part of 2 years now, frankly, and we move forward there still. Then, as Brian said, really the place, if you'd asked me 2 years ago where was the main copper project, the main copper focus in the Huntoon Valley, I would have talked about M2, because that's the thing we knew the most about. We had all that drilling, we had the resource, we have, again, soil anomalies, we have mag anomalies, we have chargeability anomalies, all overlapping each other. M2 is understood to be a skarn. We have these limestone horizons. If you think back to that diagram I showed, when you get an intrusion going into limestone, you get the mineralization there. So we have a skarn, we have a well-defined skarn horizon, and it is open in both directions along strike. There's potential for it out into the valley where a down drop section might have occurred. And we have strong chargeabilities to the anomalies to the south west here, overlapping with this mag high. So more to find at M2. And also, you know, skarns, porphyries sitting next to each other. This is building up the story. At M4, it's probably the area we know the least about at the moment, but nevertheless, we have a huge amount of copper anomalism in soils here. We have an overlapping chargeability anomaly, a strong one. This is probably the strongest chargeability anomaly we've got. It's over 2 kilometers long. It has not been drilled. We've had a discovery hole here, which intersected a mineralized breccia. So if you remember back to that diagram, we showed a breccia pipe sitting above the core of the porphyry system. That mineralized breccia could well be sitting above porphyry mineralization at depth, which is represented by that chargeability anomaly. So that's a possibility. I'm just showing these different clues and how they line up with each other. And this is how we build up a picture of the prospectivity. So then, just to mention a few stray items, we've got a trend over on this side of the hills with a number of copper oxide showings and workings. There's a thing called Smith Mine up here. And there's the M5 polymetallic project, which has, we thought of it mainly as a gold-silver thing, but there are actually copper sulfide stringers at surface there at M5. And those things, I highlight those. We've done less work on those than the 3 main projects, but I highlight them just to show the large endowment of metal there is here in the Huntoon Valley, and that there's really, everywhere we look, we seem to find metal. And ever more so, if you consider the cover picture. So I'm now showing the cover sequences that are post-mineralization. You've got the Huntoon Valley sediments, and they're in that sort of turquoise color, this darker color. This is the volcanic cover. So they're young volcanics that are sitting on the surface, a thin cover, geologically speaking. So you can begin to see that a large percentage of the areas that are not covered by cover sequences have some mineralization indicators in them. And some of the other areas, they're just pending work. It's not that there's nothing there, we just haven't quantified it yet. So you have to ask yourself, well, what's underneath all of this material? What's the potential? And when we understand, there are whole deposits in the Yerington district that were entirely under the valley sediments that are just not seen at surface. You have to find them through the sediments, and then you've got a porphyry deposit right there. So we think there's a lot of potential here in the northeast end of the Huntoon Valley, and we're really excited about our copper portfolio. And I'll stop there and hand back to you, Alistair.
Yeah, great. So Huntoon looking good. Now let's move on to the Eastside Mine. Brian, what's happening at the Eastside Mine?
This is a new development this year, Alistair. We've had the Eastside Mine group of claims from day one. We've always liked them. We've always thought there was some potential there. They've been drilled unsuccessfully by other companies in the past who probably haven't gone deep enough. But we shot an IP survey a couple of years back, and we got some drillable prospects. But we haven't drilled them because we're a small company trying to do lots of things, and they're on our to-do list, but we haven't done very much about it. In the spring this year, James took Dr. Lawrence Carter, our porphyry consultant, out to have a look at this as part of another exercise he was doing for us. And he walked the area, and he was really excited by what he saw. And his comment to James at the time, I think, was along the lines of, why didn't you tell me about this before? This is as good as anything else you've got on your acreage. So which is exciting. But basically, he's saying that we're sitting on a porphyry and we should be doing something about it. So that was the first indication. The next thing that happened was that we were approached by a company called Bronco Creek Exploration, which is part of EMX Royalty Corporation. EMX is a large North American company which operates all over the US and around the world, and a very successful company. And Bronco Creek is their exploration arm. And they have leased up claimed acreage all around us. So they've more or less boxed us in fact, which is fine. We're happy to be boxed in by a good company. And they approached us and said, listen, why don't we pool our acreage and do something on this together? Which is fine. We've never done a copper deal but with another company before, so this was a first. We're pretty excited about it. Now, of course, we think that we have the best acreage, the best part of the acreage, as indeed we would, because everyone always does. They probably think they have the best as well. But anyway, the fact is that the two companies together make much more sense than trying to do anything separately on this acreage, because it's really one unit. So what we've done is we've done what is called a pooling agreement. It's not a formal joint venture. The pooling agreement basically says we'll share the benefits and we'll share the responsibilities of trying to take this forward and turn it into a project. They are the operator of the project, which is great for us because we are thin on people and they have good, strong teams. They also think, as we would do, that this needs a large mining company eventually to come in, and they have a very good Rolodex for that sort of company. So unlike us sitting a long way away at the other side of the Atlantic, they are in the market doing deals for land and mining deals all the time. So it's just excellent to be with them. They're very, very good people, and we're looking forward to taking this forward. We announced the agreement to shareholders back in August. It's a fairly simple agreement, but it's effective. And just to repeat, it's the first copper deal we've done. We've been doing everything all on our own up to now, which is a tough call. And to be there with a bigger, more stronger and well-resourced company is great for us. And we're very pleased about that. So that's the east side. If I could, James, if I could have that map up again just quickly, just for a moment, I want to point something else. I think I referred to this before. Wait there, but I just want to put this into context. And yeah, I was that. There we are. Now this one, you can see east side is a good distance away, so it is not probably directly related to the one possible continuous copper porphyry at Huntoon, but nevertheless it's in the same setting. So what you're looking at, the Ton Group and East Side and the Huntoon Copper Project, you're looking at something which looks to us like a new copper district, which would be exciting. A geologist, an American geologist now long retired, who worked for us some years ago, looking at our copper deals, said he expected to end his career on a major copper discovery in this area. And I'd like to think he was right. And I would like to think that Great Western will be sitting at the heart of a new copper district, and that's what we're aiming to do. So that's Eastside Mine, and we're working away with Bronco Creek, and we hope to make some progress on that. We have two projects running at the same time.
Yeah, so Bronco Creek, clearly like Eastside. Why don't you tell us a bit more about the geological setting, James, and give us an indication about why they like it? And also perhaps you could mention a little bit about what you've been doing at Eastside yourself this year.
Yeah, so well, I mean, the main thing we've done this year is, as Brian said, is we visited it with Lawrence. He took a look at the ground, and what we see there on the ground, what's exciting about it is there's an outcropping direct alteration zone, one of the classic alteration zones of the porphyry setting. So it's beyond just the porphyry setting with indicators that there may be a porphyry here to find, the deposit to find. It's actually the core alteration zone, the phyllic zone, which is a high level zone within the porphyry. It's silicified and cerussitized, and that outcrops at surface along with a substantial copper and molybdenum soils anomaly. So that's been drilled previously. In the 1970s, the oil company ConocoPhillips did some drill holes here. And unfortunately, they never got out of it. Those drill holes were relatively shallow, and they stopped too soon, you know. And through their length, they stayed in that alteration zone. So we really feel like if you've got the high level of a system exposed at surface, the potential for the preservation potential for the core of the system is good. So we hope to find it at depth. Now, what indicator did we have at depth? Well, it was a couple of years back, we did the IP, and I think through our entire IP portfolio, the strongest anomalies we have are at Eastside, and they are associated with those soil anomalies at surface and structures we can map at surface. So once again, talking about this building up prospectivity layers, it's all there. You've got the chemical picture, you've got the chargeability picture, you've got the alteration picture at surface, and you know, the big bonus for us now is that we held about half of the really good looking stuff at surface. The other half is now in the Bronco Creek ground, but we have access to that through this agreement. And porphyries are big, so you know you want to have a larger area to sit on top of the prospective ground. So that's where we are with Eastside, and we're pretty excited to see what the next step is.
So copper, lots of potential copper. What about the price of copper though, Brian? It hasn't exactly rocketed away. So what's your view on where we sit in the context of the wider market?
Yeah, I mean, the copper price, in fact, has come on. If you look over a 10-year period, it's come on pretty strongly, but it's been flatlining at around $9,000 for some time now, which is ideally you have a higher copper price than that. But I think it doesn't really matter to us directly what the copper price is now, because we're not likely to produce any copper or be involved in any copper production for a very long time yet. What I think matters is the future of copper. There's a little thing which people keep saying, and I keep hearing from distant sources. I don't know who invented this and how true it is, but the people are going around now saying that in the next 30 years, the world will consume as much copper as it's previously consumed in all human history. So that would suggest that we could be looking at a boom copper market. The world is decarbonizing, and as we decarbonize, we're going to be going more into electricity, and you can't have electricity without cables, and cables use a lot of copper. So there is going to be a large demand for copper, and one can think of it a little bit like some of the oil shocks. Well, I would call, as an ex-oil man, I call the oil booms, when the price of oil in the last decade suddenly takes off and everyone gets very excited about it. One could see a situation where the copper price really would take off and there'd be increased demand. So nobody that I am speaking to has suggested there is not anything but a very good future for copper. There's another element to this, which is that nobody has discovered, there have not been many major discoveries of new copper mines in recent times. The world is depleting its copper without replacing it at the moment. So there is a demand for new copper districts, for new large copper deposits. And I think we're in the right place.
So we've been talking about the potential for copper on our ground. What's in it for the shareholders, though, Brian? That's you know the big question.
That is the key question that we always need to address. We have three bits of our business. We have our gold and silver pipeline of deals where we've had some successful drilling, and we think there are some nice projects to follow up. We haven't done much on them in 2024 because we've been busy working on copper, and we can only really do one thing at a time properly. We also have, as you know, a mill which we're building, which is getting to the production stage. It's been rather slow and has been aggravating everybody, but that will give us revenues and be a very nice add-on, allowing us to produce precious metals from mining waste. But neither of those two will really move the needle in a big way short term for our shareholders. To me, the real interest is to be a small company sitting in the middle of a new copper district. And if we can achieve that, you obviously, as it grows, you dilute your interest, but being a small company in a big place is an excellent place to be. And for our shareholders, I would say looking to the future of the copper, the copper prospects we have is the most interesting and exciting thing we have in the company. And as a shareholder myself, I'm looking forward to trying to turn our existing share price into something much more interesting.
Well, great to catch up with you guys. We look forward to lots of positive developments on the copper projects going forward.
Thank you, Alistair.
Thanks, Alistair.